And welcome back. We're joined now by Pat McGuigan with CapitolBeatOK.com. And Pat, a couple of things we want to talk about this week. Let's start with this super committee that's being named in Congress, the Select Committee on Deficit Reduction. I think that's something like that.
Yeah.
What do you make of the members of that committee?
One of the things I haven't seen widely reported, I'm sure people will notice it eventually, is that 8 of the 9 initially named, waiting to analyze the 3 House members, but 8 of the 9 initially named are both representative of their party's base, and they voted for the debt ceiling deal. Now that's actually kind of significant. What it means is that these folks who are getting pummeled from their flanks, the right flank and the left flank, are nonetheless wed to making this imperfect deal, not a solution as we said last week, work. I think that's the most significant little nugget I can offer. The 2 co-chairmen, Jeb Hanserling of Texas for the House, and of course Patty Murray of Washington for the Democrats in the Senate, are credible people representing their base in their parties.
A lot of people in Oklahoma would have liked to have seen Senator Coburn named to this committee, a member of the Gang of 6, done a lot of work on deficit reduction. What about that he was not?
I think that it's hard for a conservative to disagree with anything Tom Coburn has said, except possibly the support of some revenue enhancement at about the halfway point of all these arguments, and then his vote no. Personally, I was a little surprised by it, but I understood. Coburn has credibility with the conservative base, and he's also got a proven track record of being able to compromise when the time is right, and compromise in the positive sense. I think that's a loss to the deliberative process. Coburn already has an outline for the kinds of cuts that realistically need to be made over the long haul. An alternative to his approach that actually looks kind of modest compared to his approach might be the penny plan, which I mentioned last week, which would just 1% at a time over half a decade plus be able to actually achieve balance in the budget.
Now, we know that they have a Thanksgiving essentially timeline, a deadline. What can you say about their timeline here?
Well, they're kind of curious, and that might be, that might throw a wrench in the works in terms of my basic optimism about their seriousness. Just before Thanksgiving, and then again just before Christmas for the Congress as a whole. If they don't get it done, we'll have a balanced budget vote, and if that doesn't work, then we'll have sequestration, which we talked about last week. It's a Washington term for across-the-board cuts. Nobody really wants that, by the way. Again, I think that's an argument in favor of them getting this done.
Let's talk about a committee hearing taking place this week. David Dank has a committee meeting on looking at tax breaks, tax incentives across the state, and maybe doing away with some of them. You attended that hearing this week.
Every minute.
It was a long one, I hear.
Every minute. It was 2 long chunks of time dealing with important issues. On the one hand, one of the impressions that comes out of this is there's a caucus or there's a group of people who are the beneficiaries of these exemptions and credits of all different kinds who say, hey, there's no problem. Everything's just fine. Leave it the way it is. The problem is a lot of controversy about the way some of them have actually acted. And of course, a credible guy, speaking of credibility, David Dank, leading the charge for making sure these actually result in investment. Another observation is there was a huge argument over the reimbursement fund that comes out of, that goes to local communities in return for its quote-unquote reimbursement for revenue they don't gain because of the ad valorem tax exemption for manufacturing. It's kind of curious, though, and the issue was very much joined this week, because Representative Dank and others kept saying if the investments had never been made, you wouldn't have had any income for those localities. The investment was made, and after 5 years, you do have the income, so what's it a reimbursement for? That's going to be an interesting argument, because Dank is making the case that maybe the state shouldn't stick with that. By the way, wind power. Wind power was very much a theme of the hearing this week, and it was really more the wind power industry itself making the case for further and additional improvements in their own status in terms of these benefits. I'd say something serious is going to happen, but I don't know what. We'll have to watch.
All right. You can read more about this and other topics at CapitolBeatOK.com. Pat, thanks for being with us. Thank you. We'll see you next week.